Alright, so if we take a look at from the front of the vehicle, we'll start up at the front here. You'll notice these lifting hooks at the front. They are designed for, as the name implies, lifting. So the vehicle is being hoisted onto a ship for transport or whatever. That's where you would attach the lines to. And on the front here now, the vehicle, you can see the two regular headlights there. Those are your service driving lights, like a normal vehicle with your headlights. And then the orange lights on the fenders, those are your turn signals. Now these vehicles did not originally come with turn signals, but this is a standard military upgrade that would have been done to the vehicle had it remained in service. As far as I know, on that note, talking about being in service, this particular vehicle was sold off by the military somewhere in the mid-1970s. And from what I understand, I'm the third or fourth person to own it since then. But as far as I know, the first person to have restored it. And actually, I've owned this vehicle now for just over 30 years. So it's been a long time. My father and I purchased it from a gentleman down in Mississauga. So looking at the front of the vehicle here, as we said, the two headlights, turn signals, and you'll notice this light here, or this object here on the driver's side fender. This is your blackout headlight or tactical headlight. And when you're in a normal driving situation, you'd obviously use the service headlight, which is located here. But when you're in a combat or tactical situation, you don't want the big bright headlights for the enemy to see you. So this particular light here on the corner, as I zoom in or walk towards it a little closer here, I don't know if you can see up inside there, just barely in there, there's a small slit in the, there it is, you can see that small slit there in the metal shield on the front. That's where the light comes out. And in the blackout or tactical light system, that puts a beam of light about 10 feet, 15 feet in front of the vehicle. And it's the width of the vehicle, and it's about maybe 6 inches wide. So it's not very bright, but if it's pitch dark out, you can quite easily see where you're going. And the hood on top of it, that little hood right there, is designed to shield any light from above so an aircraft can't see you. And also in that blackout or tactical setting, we have these cat's eye lights at the front here. So these are your two little front marker lights. So it gives the person seeing you coming an idea of how wide the vehicle is. So it gives you a little bit of width, because you only have the one headlight on the driver's fender here. So as we walk a little further back, the two wooden blocks, I get asked that a lot. What are those two wooden blocks on the hood for? Well, when you open the hood, it rests up against the windshield, so they rest along the top edge of the windshield there. And this windshield will actually fold down to lower the silhouette of the vehicle. And when the windshield is lowered down, it rests on those two wooden blocks. So as we walk a little further around here, there is the one mirror. You only get the one outside mirror on this vehicle. So it does make it a little interesting sometimes. Your view rearward is not that big. Have a look inside at the driver's compartment here, and the seat is not adjustable. So those of us that are a little taller, it can get quite cramped in there. It's kind of cozy when you're sitting in there. So it wasn't meant for tall people. So take a look at our dash here. Let's start up on the top. This vehicle has wipers on it, has windshield wipers, but unlike today's vehicles, they are not electrically driven. They are vacuum driven, which means the vacuum of the engine, or the suction of the engine as it's running, drives these small vacuum motors, causes the wiper to, I'll try and do this here, move back and forth. And there is actually a manual arm there, so that is the intermittent wiper, if you will. It gives you the opportunity just to do a quick little swipe. The only problem with vacuum wipers is when you're going down the road, they work quite well, but when you accelerate rapidly, the engine vacuum falls off momentarily, so your wipers do tend to slow down. And you will also notice, well, you will notice here, that is the driver's weapon, and that is issued at that time. It was a standard Lee-Enfield 303 bolt-action rifle. In that case there, that carrying compartment is where the rifle was kept. So as we move further down the dash here, we'll go down to the, pardon me, to the headlight control system here. And a very good friend of mine did the restoration on this. She put the white letterings. This is an earlier switch that has the recessed letters. The later switches were much easier to restore. The lettering that you see here, all those lettering on there, they were raised, so they were much easier to restore. This one, they were stamped into the case, so she very painstakingly rewrote in the little grooves that were left all of the information that's on there, and thank you very much, Lisa. Anyhow, as I was saying about the different lighting systems, you can see here on the top, whoops, stay in focus, there we go. On the top system, you have off with the lever straight up, and then you have a service drive brake light. You actually have to turn your stoplight on this vehicle. And then you have the service, there we are, service drive. So that turns your headlight system on. If you switch the system over to here, you have blackout marker, which only turns your marker lights on, and then blackout drive, which brings on that little side headlight that I showed you. Your instrument panel, that gets turned on from down here, so you have panel bright, panel dim, off, and then just below it is, whoops, sorry about that. Just below it, it says, if I can get the camera to zoom in on it, it says park. What that will do is it turns your headlights off if you put it in park, leaves your dash lights on dim, and just leaves the little marker light at the back. Now there's a third lever on this control panel, and that is a locking system. What that prevents you from doing is actually, let me pull that zoom out a little bit there. What it actually prevents you from doing is inadvertently turning on your service driving or spot or your headlights. I can turn the blackout side on without moving the lock to the marker, but I can't turn any of the headlights on or the blackout driving light on without first lifting the lock, and then I can move things over. If you don't lift that lock, it will not allow you to do that. That's just a way to prevent the operator from inadvertently turning the lights on. We have next to it here, and this is one of those unique Canadian things on this vehicle. It's called a convoy light, and it's just a basic switch. But what it does is it turns a light, a small light on at the back of the vehicle that lights up the back differential housing, the back axle housing, and I'll show you that when we get further to the back. And the idea was that when the vehicles were in convoy, you weren't running with your full headlights on. So you flip that on so the guy behind you could see the vehicle, and so he could see the vehicle in front of him more easily. This next here, this knob here, that is a primer. And these vehicles were built for service in cold climates, obviously, as well as warm climates. So what this was, it aided in starting the engine. It actually pumps raw gas right into the intake manifold. So just gives it an extra shot of fuel. And okay, as we move a little further across the dash here, there's that upgraded signal system that I talked about, the turn signal system there. And it's tied into that headlight control switch, so unless it's turned on to at very least the stoplight, the signal system will not work either. So as we move further along here, I'm just going to go through the steering wheel. The military did away with ignition keys after the Second World War. Obviously, the vehicle was not assigned to one individual person, so getting a key for the vehicle was sometimes difficult to do. This way, without the key, anybody could hop in, drive it away. So that's just the ignition switch. You just turn that on and the vehicle is energized. Now this control here, as you say, it says pull out before fording. So a lot of people ask, what is fording? Well, it means for fording a river. These vehicles were designed from the factory to be waterproof. And by pulling out that lever, it closes a number of valves inside the engine that helps to pressurize the engine to help hold the water out. The next lever below that is a throttle lock, so when you're warming up the vehicle you can pull that out and it'll hold the engine RPM at a set amount. And then the little knob below that is the choke. Now I'm going to move around to the back of the vehicle here to get a little bit better shot on the other items that I want to talk about. Hopefully I'm still on... there we go. Okay, so we're going to zoom in a little bit on the dash here now from this angle. A little bit better to see from. So we've got our regular instrument cluster here. You've got a speedometer in the middle, and it's in miles per hour because back in the 1950s, that's all we had were miles per hour in North America. You have a battery discharge gauge. You have a temperature gauge there for engine temperature, and then you have a fuel gauge, and we have our oil pressure gauge. These two large bulges here, there are lights in behind that light the instruments up. And in that small little hole in the middle there, that's your high beam indicator. Okay, as we back up a little further, we have 3 shift levers here. So the first lever on the left is the standard transmission lever. This is a 3-speed transmission, so you have first, second, third, and reverses up and left. The next lever, the one in the middle, that brings on the transfer case to engage the front axle. These vehicles were not full-time 4-wheel drive. You actually had to engage the front axle. And then the small little short lever there, that's the high and low. So it has a two-speed secondary transmission that allows the vehicle to have a low range and a high range. So essentially you have 6 speeds on it. And as we move further over here, you have the vehicle data plates. And these plates, as I first talked about, there's your shifting pattern right there. And the high and low, the in and out for the front axle, and then it lists all the different manuals that were needed for the vehicle. Over here you've got all your vehicle's dimensions, plus weights, and the weights, the payload you can carry at different, in different configurations. And then below here you have your fluid capacities. 11 gallons of gas, what is that, 6.5 quarts of oil and 4 quarts of, 6.5 quarts in the coolant and 4 quarts of oil. And then you have your different tire pressures that can be changed depending on the surface that you're operating on. And then we have over here, these are the road speeds versus the gear that you're in. So you can see it says 60 miles per hour in high range. I've had it there once. It gets really scary. Very tall tires, very small wheelbase. It gets a little scary. 40, 45 is comfortable. And then you can see here in low range, the speeds are dramatically slower. As we move over here and down, this is the actual Ford plate that was shipped with the vehicle. Has the Ford serial number down in here, and has the contract number. The inspection stamp says model M38 Canadian, and I can just barely see the delivery date there. It's 7/28 of 52, so this was the middle run that was done of the 3 runs, and it says right there, Ford Motor Company of Canada Limited. By the way, these are the original data plates for this vehicle. They were in good enough condition I was able to restore them to pretty close to original. They can't be perfect, but they were able to be brought back to pretty much original. And right there you see the little glove compartment. All right, so we're at the back, kind of the, whoops, so I'll pull out the zoom here a little bit. We're kind of at the side of the vehicle now. I guess we'll talk with that first. Right there is our fuel tank, and you'll notice, yes, the driver does sit on top of the fuel tank, all 11 and a bit gallons of it. That was put there partially because it kept it from being damaged in the back. The civilian models had the fuel tank they did put them at the back later on, but something that you want for full cross country, that gave it a little bit more protection having it inside. I don't know about protecting the driver though, but I'm connected here with a power cord, so what I'm going to do is walk around the vehicle again and go to the other side so I can get a little bit better better power here. Okay. There we are. So let's go as we're walking around here. We're at the back of the vehicle. And we have a couple of things back here. There's all kinds of reflectors you'll notice all over the vehicle. It was very well lit up like that so it could be seen if light hit it. And back here we have the service drive taillight and the back turn signal. Then here is your trailer coupling, as the vehicle was able to tow a trailer. And yes, it's a bit more than a 7-pin connector because you not only had your regular full driving system with all the lights and turn signals, but then you also had to have the blackout system along with it. So